Okay, hello and welcome to the next part of our Incrediweek IncrediChat on our Kids Day. Now we got a very special guest. We have Nancy Silberkleit, who's the co-chair of Archie Comics. We're going to bring her on right now and have a conversation with her about reading and everything that's it deals with comics. So let's add it to the stream. And hello, Nancy. How are you?
Well, Zam, wham, wow, incredible chat. And Michael, thank you so much. This is awesome. And to have my name right, I am the co-CEO of Archie Comics.
Yeah, put it in that way. I'm sorry. I said co-chair, co-CEO. So I apologize for that. But so for those who don't know you or even Archie, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and Archie?
Well, let's see here. Archie was started in 1941. We've been around for 80 years. And Archie and me, I came in only 10 years ago to, this industry. And it's been, quite extraordinary. Archie Comics was started by two families, the Goldwaters and the Silberkleits. And the two gentlemen each had sons, and the sons went on to bring the company into second generation. And my husband's, longtime partner, Richard Goldwater, had passed away. I think it's about 11 years, maybe 12 years now. And then shockingly, the way life cycles go, there's a beginning and an end. Shockingly, 7 months later, my husband passed away. So Archie Comics was kind of running rudderless with no one at the helm. And I was left 50% to oversee, not to run the company, just to oversee, that share and preserve it. So I was a school teacher. I feel that I'm always, have the heart of a school teacher. And there was a force that wanted me to sell, and I didn't want to sell. I sometimes wondered what would it be like having the life of Veronica. If anyone knows our character Veronica, she's an heiress. And, I thought, what would it be like to be on a yacht like Veronica? But I get terribly seasick, so that wasn't going to work for me. And I didn't want to part with the shares. And I was a school teacher in Paramus, New Jersey. I was the art teacher. And after about 8 months of everybody working on me, they came up with an idea to bring me in as a co-CEO. I look back, and at the time I was very hesitant. But it wasn't in my crystal ball. The thought of business, frightened me. But I look back, and I was really overqualified for the job. If you look in today's New York Times section, they had put in the business section a kind of a synopsis from various teachers around the country, how they feel about distance learning. But I was very impressed that it was in the business section, because teachers should know they're doing business every day. It's their job to get information to individual minds in a way that student can grasp what the teacher's pitching. The same for the person in the business seat. It is their job to connect the brand to the people. So I'm a natural at it. So really the shoes of a school teacher that helped me. And I'm in a family business. So a lot of patience is required, and a lot of patience is required in business. So what better person, has patience than the school teacher? And remember, I had 25 years under my belt, and I wasn't just a classroom teacher. I was the art teacher, so I got to see all children. And the teacher, it's just not the individual child. You get to know their parents. You get to know their siblings. A teacher has to know that individual child, everything about them to understand how to get information. So I wanted to get information to, your people today. So I have everybody here. I got Jughead over here, there, and I have a whole bunch books and whatever. I hope I'm prepared if someone asks me something. But another important thing about, my stepping in and taking on my husband's position to be a co-CEO, do teachers go into their careers to become wealthy?
Oh, never. I'm a teacher myself. So we do it out of the love of sharing our knowledge and just working with kids and stuff.
So maybe that's why I was not movable. All that money did not, divert me. And, I, as a teacher, I love advancing, and the same applies for my company. Love advancing, love making money. But for myself, it was more, the wonderful brand of Archie Comics and letting it, propel itself. And it certainly has. We're on TV now. We have Riverdale, The Chilling Tales of Sabrina and Katie Keene. And people are now cross-generation. Some older people are saying, that's my Archie. And then the younger ones are saying, I don't know, this is my Archie. So everyone's becoming very curious, and the generations that knew the classic Archie are watching us on the CW, on Netflix, and then that new generation that's watching it on TV is opening up the classics and loving it.
That's great. That's fantastic. I've always been the classic Archie fan. When I was a kid, there was a cartoon. I think it was called The New Archie or The Little Archies. Yeah. It was like the 80s, and they were like middle school students, and that's what brought me into reading Archie comics when I saw them at the comic shop.
Yeah, I think I had a little book with the visuals of the little Archie there, and we have a wonderful book out now. It's really young. The beginner reader here. Archie's Lucky Day. And I saw on our website, I think we have 55% off today, and that book is there. So introducing just a beginner reader to our characters is brilliant.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that art, I love that art style, that it was either done by Franco or Art Balthazar.
Yes, I have
with their comics.
Right here. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah. I love that cutesy, little kid-friendly, simplistic style. That's a style I enjoy a lot.
And I always wonder, or I understand, what is it about graphic literacy? It's, this, power of storytelling. And it's how the illustrator becomes a co-storyteller with the writer. The inkiness of the lines and the vibrant colors and the hues. The artist, the penciler, and the colorist, they add to the storyteller, the original pitch of the story's platform, and really, convey a feeling. So here, you have that very young, childlike feeling, and then, later on, as we know, Archie is the teenager.
No, that's great. I love that you have all different age groups for them to read. Just about reading. When I was a kid, I had issues reading, and comics helped me out a lot. And it wasn't a lot of words. There was the pictures, and the visuals really helped me learn what the words were about, and it also taught me vocabulary that I didn't know, that I wouldn't hear regularly or whatever. So it was stuff that I was looking up or talking to my parents and asking them, what does this word mean? So I'm a big promoter for getting kids into reading comics, because for those kids who aren't strong in the beginning reading, comics help promote and encourage reading and learning through that, So you do a lot with promoting reading and so can you tell us about some of the stuff that you do?
I don't know how much time I have, but can I tell a little story that?
No, go for it. We have a total of about 50 minutes left.
Oh, okay.
5-0. It's an hour.
I have a compelling little story. When I stepped out of the classroom into the Archie boardroom, there was one thing my teaching shoes were lacking, and that was I had never read a comic book. Can you imagine growing up? Well, not growing up, but being a teenager with in a Riverdale High setting of my husband's business. So he would say, "Oh, can you come over and read this story? I don't think it's so funny." And I said, "No, I gotta make the mashed potatoes." So I had never picked up the comic books, and the reason for that, I had no love for reading. I could read. I graduated from Boston College in 1976, but I had no love for reading. I read books when I had to get information or, use in my teaching, but not that downtime. So when I came into Archie Comics, I had to start reading these books. I have them, I think, stacked up here. Oh, I don't know if I can turn it that far, but I have a huge stack. And I would bring them home. And, as a co-CEO, you got to know your stuff. Yeah. And I started piling up ones with, beautiful covers. Here's one I have here. It's a variant. But, look at these covers. They're just magnificent. So I would pile up the ones that had gorgeous covers, pile up ones with impactful messages, pile up ones that made me laugh, and pile up the ones that I wanted to read again. I never could understand, why do people always, save those books and, reread them? So it was, just something I enjoyed doing. And then I found I didn't have enough to read. And I started going to libraries, bookstores, and buying books. The first one was the Da Vinci Code. I think I stayed up to 3 a.m. for 3 straight nights until I finished that book. Wow. So, at age 54, when I stepped into this position, I found the love of reading all from turning the pages of a comic book. So, at age 54, the light bulb in my head clicked, and it was a loud click. The revelation for me was dramatic, and it was deeply, personal. It pushed me to come up with a solution, and I started a program called comic book fairs. And, just getting comic books into the hands of young people in schools. And then it started me thinking about quotes. And my first quote was comic books with that plus sign. Comic books plus children equal reading. And I started thinking about, where was I when, the comic book gets into a young person's hand? And I happen to remember, like you said, when you started out, you were struggling. I was going into 2nd grade. I remember what I was wearing that day. I was looking smart. Stepping up for a young person is a huge thing. So I remember that moment that I was stepping up into 2nd grade. And I was at the kindergarten playground, ready to bolt over to my section of 1st grade, first day at 2nd grade. And my mother tugged my hand, and she said, "No, you're not going over there. You're going there. You're going to the 1st grade section. You're repeating 1st grade because you have been left back. You are retained. You are repeating another grade, another year of 1st grade because you can't read." And that was just presented to me like that. Here I'm going into 2nd grade, and before I could walk to that line, I'm told no. Yeah. So I remember the teacher. Her name was Miss Charmer. She's not very charming. I remember those black and white books and, the yellowing of the pages and how they smelled. They were not engaging. They were not engaging from my learning style. My learning style works best with graphics. So that is, what pushed me to, start getting comic books into the hands of children and going around and promoting graphic literacy. I go around globally into schools and libraries, getting people to think about having a toolbox with whatever it will take to, connect that love of reading. Plato said, do not force a child to learn, discover what harnesses their mind. And I just think, these comic books are like a magnet.
Yeah. I actually, when I walk through the class, because I work as a substitute teacher, I actually go through all the grades in the school I'm in, and the school goes from pre-K to pre-K to 8th grade. So I see when I hit like the 5th grade classrooms, kids are reading comics on their spare time. I see it in 2nd and 3rd grade too, and even 4th, but it's when they get that free reading time and it's not a book they're told they have to read. A lot of them are pulling out comic books, graphic novels, things like that. It's amazing to see at such a young age that they're doing this. I actually really love it because, like I said, for me, it helped me learn to read. But it, being an illustrator myself and loving comics, it's a way I can actually communicate and connect with students as well. I think it's a great thing that to see them actually being allowed, and the teachers not saying put it away. It's a comic book. They're no. You're reading. It's important.
Well, graphic literacy, it's a literacy experience that is powerfully motivating people, not just children, but people to read. It's a storytelling experience that's magnetic, and it's quite complex. It's the complex plots. It fosters critical thinking. It engages one in decoding. So, schools today, their mission is to promote and graduate a child with a critical mind, that they can be thinking outside of the box. What better literacy exercise can they give them is the comic book. And comic books, graphic novels, can be an integral part of implementing any type of curriculum. I happen to have one comic book that's older, but it can be downloaded on Comixology, where our team that put this together really put together this one digest. We have many digests, but this one digest holds so many stories that can lead to map skills, women in government. I believe people should always have a hobby or involved in a sport or something. Because if I'm going to say, you should have a hobby, you kind of lose them. You're dictating information, but you want to engage. So this has stories to engage people into conversations. Also, science. There's a wonderful story called Getting Drastic with Plastic that I had heard the country Rwanda got rid of plastic bags. So my carbon footprint's not so good. I hopped on a plane and I went over there, but I brought back the information to one of our wonderful writers who had passed away, Baton Lash, and he did this wonderful story. But the story shows a female ambassador. You can talk about governments and females in charge, or you see the map of Rwanda. Where's that? Or you can talk about science and global issues. I also had it's some here on my desk. I upped it a notch, like Emerald the Chef, and I created a teacher study guide, because sometimes teachers are hesitant in using these panels. So I have given them a teacher study guide that helps facilitate them going through a comic book to utilize in the classroom. And it's also paired with the Common Core standards. You as a teacher, we have to always, explain why we're doing that lesson. So, comic books, graphic novels can be an integral part to implementing any type of curriculum, and even be a very strong platform for the Common Core standards. Common Core standards do require schools introduce graphic literacy.
Let me ask you about the thing you were just talking about there, the package you put together for the comics. If there's any teachers watching, how can they get that from you?
Well, I love giving out my email. I have a scratch and sniff card,
Oh,
but
that's
we can't
awesome.
sell it today because we're at a distance. But everyone's invited to email me at Nancy, Nancy, dot archiecomics at gmail.com. And comics has an S on the end. So it's Nancy dot archiecomics at gmail.com.
Okay, and I'm just going to put that up for a few moments so people can see that. I'll leave it up for a little bit so they can just keep it up. And I love that idea as someone who actually teaches. And I was like you, I was a visual learner, so I didn't do well in school. I had trouble reading, even when I got out of comics, and I didn't like to read. I found my love of reading later on in life when I was in college, and it turned out I was actually photosensitive. This is a weird story. I was photosensitive, and the fluorescent lights above me at school would make the words blur up in a book. I thought I had some issues with something with me. I found out later in life when I was in college, I'm photosensitive. I need to put drops in my eyes so they don't dry out because I have, really dry eyes. And then when that happened, I'm like, oh, this is actually fun. I enjoy reading books, but I was slower than my, my friends and people on my level. I was still a little lower. But I was a visual learner, and I've been teaching, I don't even know how long. I'm 44 years old, but I started off in art centers. I taught college for 16 years. I've worked with middle school, high school, elementary. I travel teaching about cartooning. Now that's my big things. I'm a traveling cartoon educator. But what I've done is throughout my years, I've developed lesson plans to bring visual learning into the project so that people who can't just read or listen, and I'm like, I think that's a great thing, and I give those sometimes away to teachers, and I'll use them when I come into the classroom and talk about how comics are helpful, and it's great. So I love that you have a really thought out program to give to a teacher, and this is how a comic works, and this is everything, and they need to use comics in the classroom basically. I think that's.
I don't want you to be so hard on yourself that you could read, or I don't want anyone like us to be hard on themselves, because it was not us. It was the person who had to engage us into reading. It was their job to figure out how to connect the words to our brain. So, and it's still a mystery, there's no, right way for everyone. It's a very individual, project. And when you're talking about bringing in comics to teach, there's a lot of, we hear about bullying and being kind and being inclusive to one another. The kids are tired of hearing that. So I would rather, see a teacher say, hey, we're going to read a story today. And I have, again, in this one digest, Archie's Funhouse Spring Annual, Library 26. It can be gotten at digitally at Comixology, but also if you go to the archiecomics.com website, I think I mentioned we have 55% off today. They have bundles of comic books. I don't know if this is in it. Sometimes it's a mystery how many more of these we have left. But this is one I've been using. I've been reading comics to libraries and school children as we are in this, pandemic situation. And this is an excellent one to talk about inclusion and kindness. It's called Archie the Trendsetter. And what I do is I only read a few pages. I don't read the ending. And I let children have the experience of creating how they think it turns out. So just that little one talks about, behavior and kindness, inclusion, but also gives the opportunity for writing skills and learning about character development. So, to me, comics, utilizing comics in the classroom are phenomenal to get from, part A to, where you really want to go, because engagement is key. So it was, teachers and parents, trying to figure out how to get us to read. So always think about the comic book.
I believe me, I always do. And I put up the Archie Comics website so people can go to the website to use that discount that you're talking about and buy a bunch of Archie Comics today. Let me ask you. You said you started a thing about going into schools with bringing them in. I think you called it like a comic fair. Yeah. Do you do anything at shows? Do you attend Comic Cons and do this promotion or you know?
I have in the past. So, but it's best for people, to contact me right now. I've been promoting a new character called Scarlet Salty, and Scarlet is a new teen at Riverdale High, and Scarlet is very skilled in building things, not only just building stuff, but building ideas. She did this one on Say No to Plastic Straws, and this was a very cute story. And she also is passionate about wearing shoes with flowers. She will only wear shoes that have flowers on them.
Interesting.
Something that she obsesses on. And another thing about Scarlet, she desires friendships, but she finds it's difficult in making friends because Scarlet is autistic. And this character, Scarlet Salty, her message is that autism is just one part of me. There's so much more about me, but she needs you, and myself to understand what autism is, not finding it out hearsay, but really understanding and noting that, it takes a lot of patience, even if you're not autistic, for everyone. Everyone has different learning styles, and patience is key. So that's been Scarlett's message, and she has about 4 stories out. The first one was done by Ray Felix. You know Ray.
I know Ray.
And she has about 4 other stories, and those are only available through digital. You have to contact me for them, and then you buy it through PayPal. And it's been a wonderful project because my feeling is, how do I know you're going to read that Scarlet story? Because Scarlet's really looking for ambassadors to get that message out that autism is just one part of her. And she requires you to understand autism and provide patience and kindness and inclusion. So, how do I know you read that? So asking people to contact me directly through nancy.archiecomics@gmail.com gives me more of a chance to get people to be ambassadors. So I have ambassadors all around the world now, and that's been going very nicely for me.
That's fantastic. That's something I'd love to check out. I actually have taught a bunch of autistic people in the past, especially on the college level. I've dealt with some on the younger side. I have friends with kids that are autistic. I've actually donated time to autistic charities and stuff, and done artwork and whatever for them. And so I don't have autism that affects me in my life in any real particular way, but I see it through my friends and stuff. So I try to help out when I can with the charities and just even promote kindness, because I know when I see these people, some of them, they don't think like we do, and it's not wrong the way they think, and they sometimes they see things so differently. It's interesting just to have a conversation with them if they're willing to talk to you. So I think that's a fantastic character to come out. I wasn't actually aware of it. I've heard something about it, but I wasn't 100% knowledgeable on it. So I think that's fantastic. And any way people can get that and promote it. And I'm actually going to let some of my friends know, and some of the people some of the people I work with know, so they can share this and let them know. Go to the website, which I have at the bottom of the screen right now. Not the website, your email, sorry.
And I also, express and communicate to people, we come into this world as, a person, and we are all wired differently. And, someone who is maybe in a wheelchair or something, they come in knowing their life like that. And we're trying to, society now is trying to create the path that they're not disabled, they are able. And I met a man, who had no legs, and he says it's really upsetting when people come and go, oh, can you help? Can I help you? Or you inspire me. He says he will ask for help if he needs it, because this is how a person, this is their life, and what their life means to them is everything. So someone shouldn't judge it that it's wrong or right. It's just patience and learning about the person and seeing, if you want to be a true friend, learning about the person.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. Let me ask you, so with, I keep saying you're a big promoter on reading and you're a big promoter on all this stuff here. I just want to say, even though I saw you last year, we met at the Mount Vernon Public Library Comic Con. We both received awards that day. I'm not going to talk about mine, but I want to congratulate you again, because it was a great honor with what you what you received. I saw, I was on stage with you when you received it. It was fantastic. You want to tell us a little bit about what that award was and why they gave it to you?
Well, I was so surprised. They reached out to me in an email and said that they wanted to honor me. And, so I don't know if you saw it. I got a lot of awards that day. And the glass one is, sitting on my desk. And it's just, being part of the community and also my outreach globally, promoting how one has to approach reading, because reading is everything.
Yes.
So the library was, I guess, privy to what I was doing. So I was just amazed that day. It was a wonderful day. It was windy, but sunny. And it was just great being in their community. And now I'm involved with their library, and I'm always looking to create equal time for Archie. When I go to libraries and I look on the shelves, I see Marvel, I see DC, and Archie is there, but I want to expand that to make sure that we are inclusive. So when somebody looks in the graphics section, they see that, Archie is strongly there, because we have so many books that are appropriate. So, they were expanding their library shelves with, we have so many of these books, if you get them in the screen. And you can go to your bookstores, you can go online, and they are treasures because they're heavy with so many wonderful, books. Archie has had, so many stories that are impactful and have important life lessons that someone holds in their heart for a lifetime. For a lifetime, Archie has made such an impression.
Yeah, no, it's been around for I don't even know, how long did you say, 80 years now, or no?
80 years now.
Oh yeah, it's been a long time.
I had one book, let's see, this is one with milestones, and this one here was when we were at 75 years.
Yeah.
So, and I just wish the two gentlemen could be here at the table, John Goldwater Sr., Louis Silberkleit. So, I could just tell them what a gift they gave to the world. They wanted to, make a mark for the young girls, because, you had these superheroes and dueling and blowing up. Yeah. And really, comic books was it
was a man's career. Yeah, I know. I know what you were going for.
It was a man's world.
Yeah.
And it's it was, their initiative to provide something for the girl, but I'm sure they saw it, but I don't know how I would love to tell them what an impact they have made for both genders. I was just speaking in Athens, Greece, and a man came up to me and said, I must tell you how Archie helped me get through my teen years. So I'm always there waiting to hear, how did Archie do that? And he said he would look at Archie's clothing and he wanted to be very American, which he felt would make him be very cool. Now, our writers and artists always are subscribing to the latest fashion magazines. So that shows you the dedication of their doing research. They just don't put the pencil to the paper. They do so much research to make, these rich stories and the fashion that I am sure it was just not only this man in Athens, Greece. It was, that feeling that boys were looking at these stories and doing just what he did, looking, at American clothing. Other people told me it was their dating guide. So, Archie Comics has attracted equally the male and female population, and we're genderless. We are, just every age group you can imagine embraces the brand. It's just phenomenal. So I wish I could, have those two gentlemen here. And I want to also, give a shout out to our comic book stores.
Oh yeah, totally.
Radio shows and wherever, and putting the, thought out there to contact your favorite comic book store and buy a comic book and send it to someone and put a smile on their face, because our comic book stores have done such magnificent jobs in making their stores welcoming and, for everyone, making that equal feeling for, every, gender and every age group. The comic book stores were intimidating at one time, but today they're like the go-to hangout place for, everyone.
Exactly. Well, two things. One, I just wanted to say this morning I did a virtual tour of the Spider's Web located in Yonkers, which is my go-to store. And like you were saying, it's a hangout. One of the things I was saying when I was talking to them is I actually miss coming to the store right now since we're under quarantine. I mean, they're doing curbside pickup, but it's not like I can go into the store and hang out and just talk with my friends, and at the end of this week on Saturday, we're going to have East Side Mags. My friend Jeff Beck owns that. That's in Montclair, New Jersey. And we're going to take a tour of his store. So I'm trying to show as much stuff as I can here. But if you don't know where a store is, I wanted to put this up. There's a website I was looking up when you were talking. I'm going to put it up, and it's called comicsshoplocator.com.
That's out of Steve Jeppy out of Diamonds, and he's doing hashtag the big comeback. So, challenge people to do what, I've been doing on these shows, to call up your comic book store. And I've been just loving it. I was on this one show and I said, the first 10 people to contact me, and so I was calling comic book stores all around the country and then sending comic books to that person's choice. So, think about doing that, because you put a smile on someone's face. And from my platform, you are promoting that love of reading. And it doesn't matter if the person's 7 or 70. We all should find that love of reading.
Yes, I completely agree. I want to tell you a story, and it happened on, I believe, Free Comic Book Day. I was in one of the shops. I was doing an appearance, and it wasn't a happy moment like reading is. And I almost said something, and I didn't, because obviously I didn't feel it was my place to say. And they were looking at, it was a couple looking at comics, and they were buying for their kid, and the kid was 10 years old or so, and he wanted to buy a Smurfs comic. And the mother said, no, we got to get him superheroes. He's too old for Smurfs. And I was so upset when I heard that. I just wanted to go up to her and say, it doesn't matter. First of all, like I said, I'm 44. I have like the entire Smurfs collection right next to me, on another bookshelf. If that's what he enjoys reading, he's reading. And that's what I wanted to say. And that's something with what you were saying, send them a comic. If they love Archie, that's fantastic. If they love something else, send them what they're going to love, what they're going to enjoy. Put a smile on their face, like you say. I think that's a great idea. I didn't even think about saying, let's send it out to someone. I just was telling people, go to the comic shop for yourself or for your kids. But that is a terrific idea. Go out, get a book that makes someone smile, and let them read it. And if it's a single issue of 22 pages, or it's a 120 trade or graphic novel, whatever, let them have it. Let them enjoy it.
And you can just call up your comic book store. They're there for you. So you don't have to go there. But if you go there, it's curbside pickup, or some stores are letting people come in, but letting them come in safely. But you can call them up. All I did, it was total lockdown. I was calling whatever comic store this person told me. I was calling that comic book store, and they were there on the phone. I left a message. Some called me back. But getting back to how that child loves Smurf, those characters, just like Betty, Veronica, Jughead, Archie, Kevin Keller, they take on real life personalities that people feel they can connect with. So that child, he's been Smurfed, and it meant something to him where he wanted to become more connected. And MIT requires their students to read comics, any comics, because it's downtime and it's recharging your batteries. And if there's any time, then like right now, that one needs to recharge their batteries, it's now. So being able to get lost in fantasy is huge now. And when I say call that comic book store, you're giving someone the opportunity to get lost in fantasy. And it's what we need now, because listening to the news, the radio, the newspaper, this is serious. We've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, I know. And I actually was going to talk to you about that in a minute, but I wanted to let you know before I forget. I don't know where it is next to me here, but I got 6 boxes of comics. One box is complete full of Archie. They came from my wife, right? Who collected them when she was a kid. Her dad would take them, but he collected them when he was a kid. So I have classic Archies going back to when her father was a kid, to what she collected, and some of the stuff that I collected. Like I loved Archie's Weird Mysteries back in, what was that, the early 2000s? Like that was a good, they had the TV series. I read the comic, things like that. And I love the Archie Digest stuff. And so I have some of those, but it's just a box of a mismatch of Archie going back to her father's childhood.
Are they in good shape?
I hope so. I haven't looked in the box in a while, to be honest with you. Some are, yes, I know that. But yeah, no, that was that. I just needed to let you know, because Archie has that effect. And you said you're seeing people from different generations. This was my Archie, and now we're watching Riverdale with our kids, and we're doing this. It has such an impact. They're fantastic books for all ages. And like you were saying, the guy from Greece, he was influenced by that. I feel just on my knowledge of Archie, that overseas, Archie is so beloved. Not that they're not beloved here, but there is a whole different way people look at Archie overseas. And I don't know if it was like what you said, because it was an American stuff, or just people are like, oh, this is a different thing than what we normally see, that it became popular out there. But I have talked to people overseas at shows in America, because I've never been overseas, and Archie is something they get excited about.
Well, I have another story if we have time.
Yeah, we got about 15 minutes.
Okay, because I'm always fascinated with people abroad. What is it? Because it's huge. Their passion runs deep for Archie. So I got a message that there was some woman who had read I Was in Town. I was in New Delhi, I was in Pune, and she wanted to come visit me. Yeah. So I always say yes, just like I give out my email and my phone number. I'm very much, wanting to always connect with the people, because it's the people that propelled Archie Comics around the globe with conversation. Because again, these people take on like real life people. People put life into them. So I met with her, and I said, she goes, oh, I just wanted to meet you and tell you how much I love Archie Comics. So I said, well, tell me, what is it that drove you to want to pick up the phone and speak with me? And she said, well, she was going to go to America. And she had, always wanted to understand and be, kind of American fashion and American this. She had never heard the word jalopy, and she learned the word jalopy. But she shared this story that when she finally went to New York City, she was thrilled that she was going to have her first burger. And this is what she said. I had my first burger in New York City, but I was very taken back when my first burger came to my table, because I knew burgers. Let's see if I can find a page of Archie or Jughead. I'm looking for Jughead. Can't find it. It was here. Oh, here's something. We know, she goes, Jughead was always having burgers. So when my burger came to the table, I was shocked. To the burger. I knew burgers to be like this. You can only eat one burger. So her, visualizing what a burger what a burger looked like in India was that. And can you imagine when she sat down and this little thing came, she was shocked and disappointed. But after she ate it, she realized you can only eat one burger. And nobody has, that type of appetite like Joe.
Yeah, nobody. Yeah. So I just want to quickly get back to, we were talking about, what was it? The kind of like being, before I told you the story, we were talking about kind of like the quarantine a little bit and stuff. And I know you do a lot of, you have a lot of your books digitized and that they can get on Comixology, correct?
Yeah.
Is it just kind of current books that you have on there, or is it classics that they can download? Because I keep telling people this is the time to be reading digital comics if you can't get to a comic shop. And these days, like you were saying, send someone a comic, you can send them it through digital now, and they can read it on their tablet because they can't get somewhere. So do you know what your catalog is like, digitized wise?
I don't know the updated one, but yes, you can. Archie is everywhere. You can get the classics and the new. Okay. And also, if you have a library card, and if you don't have a library card, you can get one, because the librarians are waiting there for you. If they're not physically in the library, they are checking their mail. You just need to show proof of your address, and they'll get a library card right away to you. But a lot of libraries globally have Hoopla, where you can download the story for free, digital, or they may have Overdrive. There's many different platforms, but Comixology, and there's others out there where you can get all our books, and also Archie Comics, archiecomics.com.
That's awesome. That's awesome, because we're winding down time. We have about 10 minutes left. I don't really have any questions left for you. I love that, I got to say, I love what you're doing. I love the promotion of reading. I love everything about that. But besides what you're doing now, is there anything else you'd like to promote or advice you want to give to anybody about anything dealing with either what's going on in today's world and how that relates to what you're doing, or just in general about what you do?
Well, I think going back to the comic book stores, there were some, negative articles that, bothered me. And comic books are never going away, because one thing, it's a collector's item. And as I said, I believe strongly everyone should have a hobby or an interest, maybe a sport or interest in music or dance or reading collecting comic books. Because if you're ever bullied, it's always good it doesn't solve the problem, but it's always good to have something to fall back on. But, contacting, so that was, comic books are always going to be around, and these articles I felt were negative. But, support.
Whoops, you froze. Hold on.
And if you want to, put a smile on someone's face, you can call. If you're in New York, you can call up comic book stores, anywhere. They're all there for you and open. And we have wonderful comic book stores around the
That's great. I do want to touch upon one other thing. You've mentioned bullying a few times, which is a topic that is a big thing right now. Comics are a great way for the escapism. There's books specifically about bullying. Has Archie done anything specifically on that topic that you've been part of in any way?
Well, we've had stories throughout, our 80 years.
I'm sorry, you're kind of choppy right now. I can't hear you. If you can hear me, let's give it a moment. Hold on. I'm going to remove you from the stream and try to put you back in, see if that does anything. Well, I gave you the stream. Okay, and... Oh, you're still chat. I'm sorry. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm going to wait a few minutes to see if you can come back. If you can't, we will end a little early, but I'm going to wait a couple of minutes. I do apologize for this, everybody watching. We are Nancy's camera froze. I can't hear her at the moment, so I'm just giving her a moment to come back. Oh, she disconnected. I'm sorry. Let's see if she comes back. But we've been talking with Nancy Silberkleit, who is the co-CEO of Archie Comics. She has been doing everything on promoting reading. You can, if you go to, let me bring this back up. If you go to archiecomics.com, I believe she said there's a 55% off sale today. She thinks, and you can download comics from there. She is a strong promoter of comic book shops, going to there, sending comics to someone, whether it's 1, 2, 3, whatever, send and put a smile on someone's face with comics. If you don't know where to get comics from, if you can't find them online or you don't have a local comic store, go to comicshoplocator.com and they'll tell you where the closest one is to you. Nancy also today spoke of how she created a program that works for teachers to use comics in the classroom and help visual literacy. And you can email her at nancy.archiecomics@gmail.com. So I recommend you guys going to do that as well. It was a great interview. I don't think she's coming back from the time. I'm happy to have her come back. But right now, I got to say, I thoroughly enjoyed chatting with her. I love her message, her what she's doing. Oh, before I forget, also, if you want to connect with her through her email, there is I believe the character's name is Scarlet. I don't want to make a mistake, but Scarlet, she's an autistic, she's a new student who's autistic to Riverdale. And here comes Nancy back. Hello. I was just pitching everything you were doing and recapping. So yeah, I'm sorry, you cut out, you froze, and I was asking you about the advice or whatever. So
well, as I didn't know if anyone could hear me, so I was talking about how Archie has always had stories that touch upon how we interact with one another. Yeah. So it comes out in a very entertaining way. So there's this old story where Betty and Veronica are tugging on a scarf. They both want it. And Veronica, in her savvy way, says, Betty, Archie just came into the room. And Betty loses her train of thought. And there goes the scarf to Veronica. And Archie was never there. So that is a story that I have carried in my heart when I found that. And I feel, that's what our Archie fans do. They're very, taken by these stories. You always hear, are you a Betty? Are you Veronica? And it's been, the beat goes on for 80 years everywhere around the globe.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So there's like less than 5 minutes left. So I just want to kind of do the recap I was doing. And at the end, if you have anything to say or want to, give out again, like I have the Archie Comics website up. You said there's a 55% off sale today, you believe.
Yeah.
And is that go for only digital, or is that for print that they can have delivered to their house?
That's getting comic books in your mailbox.
Okay, that's for getting which is great because everybody loves to get mail no matter the age, and to have something like that come to a kid, kids love that.
Yeah, and as I said, now is the time for that because this is an experience where everyone needs fantasy. They need to get some free time away from, the pandemic situation we're all in.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm also going to put your website back up, and this was to get the educators, guide you created, as well as the Scarlet book, correct?
Yes.
So if anybody's interested in Scarlet, who is a new student to Riverdale with autism that just wants to make friends and loves to wear shoes with flowers on them. I'm having that all correct, right? Good
yes.
For that.
Fernando Ruiz, he gave us a beautiful, sketch with Scarlet.
Yeah, Fernando's an amazing artist. He actually drew that Archie's Weird Mysteries that I was mentioning, and he's actually a good friend of us here at the Incredicon and IncrediChat area. He's a fantastic guy, talented, amazingly talented artist.
Well, it was a pleasure, being on this forum. It was my first time doing it's StreamYard on Facebook. So
yes. All right. Well, thank you for coming on. I'm gonna take you off the screen now, and my next guest should be in the next few minutes. But thank you. I mean, this was fantastic. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you. So, kisses, and everyone. Get lost in graphic literacy.
I will be promoting that too. Thank you again. Have a great day.
Thank you.
All right. So that was my interview with Nancy Silberkleit, which I had fun. I enjoy Archie comics. I enjoy everything there. So I love her message, and I love everything that she was talking about. I'm going to put up the Archie comics.com again so people can reach out. Remember, 55% off on having comics delivered to your house, which is fantastic because, like I said, everybody loves getting stuff in the mail, and that is what I would I know I enjoyed it. So kids love it. It's a great gift to give to kids. All right. Our next guest, Dave Beaty, will be in a few moments, and we're going to be doing a drawing tutorial on, he's going to do some drawing, and I'm just going to talk with him about a lot of stuff. And if you hear my cat, I guess he just woke up. So this was great. So I'm sorry, I just got a message I need to respond to here. And we're almost ready. So we're going to do here, what's it called here? Sorry, I just needed to send that message. It's for one of our future guests. Tomorrow, we're having Paul Castiglia, who actually wrote some stuff for Archie on here. He's a friend of Mike and I, and the book I mentioned, Archie Weird Mystery, he was the author of that book. He wrote those stories. So he's going to come on tomorrow. We're going to talk about the history of characters, though. We may not talk much about Archie, but we're going to, he's got a lot of other great stuff that he's done. So I want to share, but his time at Archie was a great time for him, and he'll share some of those stories as well. So hold on, let me get out here. And now I'm just waiting on Dave to come in. Are we a little, let me message Dave. Okay. Make sure I sent them the right one. Let's see. I just sent him a message. Hopefully he gets it. I'm going to re-email him the link just to be safe. And send. Just in case I sent them the wrong stream. I've done 3 streams. This is my 3rd stream today. I might have accidentally sent them the wrong one. Anyway, he now definitely has the right one. He should be on in a few minutes. And so let me get, so just looking for his website here. So I can read you a little bit about him. We got a new viewer here, which is great. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out and ask any questions you want. So I'm currently on, you know what, I'll put it up. I'll put it up on here. Let me open up a new website here. New web page. And it's Dave. I believe it's DaveBeaty.com. Let me see. Yes, I'm on the right site. So I'm going to move this over to my other screen. And let's put this on until he comes on. Let's take a look at his website. So this is comic book art and posters. So we can see some Batman here, Red Skirts, which I is I think an original story of his. Got some really nice artwork here. I lean more towards his Batman piece that's right there. You know, it's got that nice 60s Batman feel. I love the Adam West Batman. Okay. Let's go back. Let's see another image. Wow, that's really nice. Ditch the plastic, get a classic. Nice. Nice work. I don't know if that's from anything in particular, but I'm loving that look. The red skirts and a nice Batman piece here. I believe Dave worked on as an inker for DC. I don't know about Marvel. I'm going to ask him some questions. I don't know if he's drawn this. And he's got all these things here. I'm not too familiar with this. This is something I wanted to ask him about. Retro Rogues Live. Let's see, latest news. There is a great tutorial he has on his YouTube. It's about an hour long, and it discusses coloring with Prismacolor pencils. I mean, not pencils, markers. And he drew a beautiful Blue Beetle. So let's read this here. I'm sorry, I'm having a little issue at the moment here. Let's see. So Dave Beaty, or Beatty, I think it is. Sorry if I say your name wrong. I'm not good with names until I hear them. Is a professional comic book artist. He's known mostly for his work with DC Comics, where he worked on several high-profile series such as Batman Inc., which was a New York Times bestseller, Flashpoint, Wonder Woman, Brightest Day, another New York Times bestseller, and Justice League of America on January 25th, 2014. where am I? Amazing Arizona Comic Con. He had At the Amazing Arizona Comic Con, he had a group of fellow comic book creators helped set 2 Guinness World Records for the fastest time to produce a comic book and most collaborators to a comic book. He is highly sought after as a sketch card artist and has worked on major sets featuring fan favorite characters as Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Ghostbusters, Spider-Man, and the X-Men. All right, I'm going to bring in Mike Lopez in a minute. Let me remove that, and here's Mike Lopez, the other half of IncrediCon and IncrediChat.
Are you wrapping up here, or what's going on?
No, I'm waiting for Dave to log in. I don't know if he's having issues. I messaged him.
All right, so let's wrap up at 4 then.
What?
Today? This will wrap up at 4 today?
Yes, unless you want to do something.
No, we'll save it for later in the week.
Okay.
People don't want to sit in front of the computer all day.
I've been doing it.
It's a nice day. It's a nice day. Open the windows, go outside.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I have my windows open, so I only have my ceiling fan going, not like my other fans I normally do. So
Indeed.
let me just reach out one more time. I'm going to send him an email again. I sent him the email to the stream.
I mean, if not, then it's it. Then this is it for today. This wraps it up.
Yeah, I think so. Let me just. Well, he liked it. He knows the time we're going on.
He's definitely doing that stuff. So
yeah, no. He knows. He knows what's going on. What was that? So we just ended with Nancy. I don't know. Did you watch any of it?
I did not get a chance to look at it yet. No.
I had a lot of fun. It was a fantastic interview.
Nancy's great. She's great.
That she her message in what she promotes is fantastic. I love that they have the new character Scarlet that she's promoting.
Yes.
Which our friend Ray Felix worked on.
Did you guys talk about that?
She just mentioned that Ray worked on it.
Okay.
Which, I don't know much about the character other than what she told me. So it sounds interesting. It sounds like something I'd want to read. I like the idea of her quite a bit. So
yes.
Oh. I'm sorry. I just saw a little message from you.
Oh, that's fine. I was just popping in to see how everything was.
Yeah, no, everything's doing good. Yeah, I finally figured out how to, and this was something I had to look up, how to add features to live on screen. So, for example, one of the
experience.
What?
It's been a learning experience.
Yeah, sometimes I don't know. So, for example, if you need to get to a comic shop, you don't know where one is, head over to comicshoplocator.com.
Go to Anthony and ask our Turniverse. He's doing curbside pickup.
Yes. And where's his store located so people know?
Hyde Park, New York.
Yeah, so if you're in that area, head over to Alternaverse Comics.
At Alternaverse. Friend Anthony over there. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff indeed.
Well, I think I'm going to give him 5 more minutes. If he doesn't show up, we're going to
wrap up today's
day, and maybe we can bring him on another time, maybe on Saturday or something. He lives in Arizona, so maybe he got the time wrong, thinking he had to come on at 3:00 his time.
This is possible.
And if that's what he wants to do, I don't mind coming back on at 6 to bring him on. I'll talk to him. Hopefully he'll message and. But it's okay. I'm flexible. He's a fantastic artist. I was just saying his YouTube channel has a really great tutorial on using Prismacolor markers, where he drew the Blue Beetle. He's worked on Batman, worked on Justice League, Flashpoint, Wonder Woman. So he's done a lot of great titles for DC Comics. He's a sketch card artist and does a lot of a lot of big brands, like he says here. Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, Ghostbusters, Spider-Man, and X-Men are just some to name the few that he's done as sketch cards. So, and if you go to his website, DaveBeaty.com, DaveBeaty.com,
okay,
you can shop there and find out some good stuff. I think it's been a great day. I think we had some great people come on today. We started with a virtual trip to the Spider's Web. Then we went on to me drawing Mr. Pop and Twist, who came on later. Then we had Janimal, our friend the Janimal, show how to draw a zombie, kid-friendly zombie. Don't worry.
Okay.
Then what do we do at noon?
Oh,
I don't remember noon.
I don't know what you. Oh, Mr. Pop and Twist? No, it wasn't Mr.
Pop and Twist was 1. Who was before? Oh, my friend DJ O'Connor came on and drew some Disney characters, and we had a nice conversation about his art and things that he likes, and programs and things like that. Then we had Mr. Pop and Twist create Courage. He created a baby Groot, and he created Thor's hammer. Right? Anything else he create?
Sebastian and Courage.
Sebastian. Well, I said Courage, and Sebastian was the last thing. And then we had Nancy come on, which was a really, really entertaining interview. And then we are where we are now. So we're going to turn off in a moment, but I do want to promote tomorrow at 8 p.m. Our good friend Paul Castiglia is coming on, who has written for Archie. He's got some other great stuff. We're going to talk about this book that he is co-author on, MLJ Companion from Tomorrow's Publishing. We're going to talk about what?
It's Paul Castiglia.
Yes, and we're going to talk about the history of comic characters as well. And then from 9 to 10, our friend Ramon Gill will be coming on to talk about how to pitch to publishers.
Ramon, it's fun to say Ramon.
And if Paul wants to stay on and continue with us, it's more than welcome to. I always love having Paul on and talking with Paul. He's a really great guy. And not that Ramon isn't. Ramon's a good guy too. I'm just saying, Paul, since he's coming first, is welcome to stay on and give advice with his long-term career in the industry. So, I think we'll end. And
sounds good.
I don't think, so if it turns out that he got the time wrong because of that, I'll pop on tonight at 6. I don't mind. He's a good guy, and I enjoy chatting with Dave tonight. And you're welcome to come on, and if and we'll hold off on some other stuff then, I guess.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, everybody who tuned in today, thank you for tuning in with us. Remember
Let's get our numbers.
What?
Let's get our numbers.
Yes, we will look at them later. Oh wait, hold on. He says, he'll log in a moment. So Dave is coming on.
There you go. Look at that.
So we will go a little, maybe extend a little past 4 so that he gets his hour in, or if we need to go less or longer, I'm good with that.
There you go.
But I do want to thank everyone who has tuned in so far. It's been a fantastic day, and a lot of great interviews, a lot of great stuff came out, and this is all replayable on our Facebook page and on YouTube, and eventually it'll be on our website, which I can now put on as IncrediKids HV.com.
What are you doing?
I'm putting it up as something I can share on the screen. We can even make it, watch this, we can even make it more magical now.
It should be magical.
And now we'll show it. It's going across the bottom of the screen.
Well, you should have more writing than that.
I know, but I'm just saying. It's things we could do. I'm learning as we go sometimes. Everything's a learning process, So I didn't know there were certain things I could do. I know now. But yes, IncrediKids HV is where you can find these videos in the next few days, as well as on our Facebook page and on my YouTube page at Michael Gracia.
There you go. So anyways, all right. I'm going to sign off. You can hang out, wait for...
all right. Sounds good. I'll just talk and listen to the sound of my own voice for a little bit.
I'm going to enjoy nature.
You go enjoy nature.
I'll enjoy nature today.
It's nice. I've been looking out the window and enjoying it today. I think it's fantastic.
Nice day. It's going to rain on Tuesday, so you got today and tomorrow to enjoy nature.
That's
Oh,
good.
hey, hello, Nancy. Thank you. Nancy just showed you a nice little thing there.
Oh, did she? Hold on, let me see. I'm on the banner. Thank you, Michael. Had a lovely chat. Look forward to hearing Paul talk. He has so much knowledge on Archie, and he was close with my husband, Michael. My husband loved Paul's dedication to the brand. Yeah, no, he was good. Very, very good guy.
Yeah, and again, Nancy, thank you. Nancy did a thing for my students the other day too. So thank you very much for doing that, Nancy. That was great. And again, thank you for joining us for the IncrediChat, IncrediKids, and special edition that we did today. So we're glad we were able to get you on here very quickly. Because around it was too. So thank you again, Nancy.
Yeah, I have to say I thoroughly enjoyed chatting with you. It was not that I was surprised. I was just saying it was a really fun part of my day today.
And we'll definitely have you back too. I think that's an important
one of our evening chats. Maybe we'll bring you on for. I think
Dark. I know we were joking about that. Not actually the art chapter, but we can just talk about literacy and stuff in the schools. So I think that's an important thing. Education in the arts. It's what we do here. Any word on your buddy here? What's his name?
He said he goes, I will log in just a moment. That's all I got. But it's okay. It's okay.
Dave Beaty. Beaty.
I think it's Beaty, right?
Oh. All right. I'm going to go. So again, Nancy, thank you. And thanks, everybody. Yes. We'll see you tomorrow on the IncrediChat. At least I will.
Well, I'll be here. So
right.
I'll let you go, man. I'll talk to you later. All right. See you later, man. Enjoy the rest of the day. Okay. And let's go back to Dave's site here until he comes on. Let's see. He's got more stuff here. Let's see. Let's take a look at some of his sketch cards. Here's some great samples. So down at the bottom, we got Superman and Batman. I believe that is the one above it. I know it's from Guardian of the Galaxies. I believe that is one of Star-Lord's, one of the interpretations of Star-Lord. I'm not 100%. I'm more of a DC guy. I assume that's a Supergirl interpretation. We got Deathstroke, sorry. Hack and Slash, I'm not familiar with. Obviously, I think that's Rogue from X-Men. And then what you can't see, it's weird. Let me see if I can move it down a little bit. There is a Slimer at the end. And I'm not able to escape out for some reason. Huh. Let's see about more. He's got his inking samples, commissions, and sketches. He has a blog. So let's head over to the blog. Let's take a look and see what he talks about. So this is more of a video, obviously, blog that he puts up. He's posting his videos, which is fantastic. I'd love to go through them and read stuff. Like I said, he has a really great tutorial on YouTube. I'd have to go look it up. Actually, you know what? No, he sent me. Give me 1 second. I'm sure I can grab it. And okay, he sent me a link to it. Let me just go back in my messages. So I'm going to bring this. It doesn't have. We don't have to. Whoops.
I actually brought the raw video in.
Where is it here? Where'd it go? Okay, hold on. Oh, there we go. That's what I want. So I minimize it. And did I? Let's see. Minimize this. Oh, here he is. Hold on. Let's add him to the stream. Hello. Can you hear me?
Can't hear you. Hold on.
Okay.
This stupid thing.
It's okay. Technology is fantastic. If you want, try to come
on. Hey, Micah. Do you have Bluetooth on your phone? Okay, it's interfering, I think.
Okay, I'm gonna remove you. I've removed Dave from the stream for a few minutes so that he can work out whatever issues he's having. Give me a thumbs up when you're ready to go. Okay. So in the meantime, while Dave's trying to get his stuff working, which is a little strange and I didn't, usually do a test, but we're not going on and off between guests today. But we've actually linked up before through this service and it worked fine. So like he said, he might be having issues with the Bluetooth right now. I told him to give me a thumbs up when he's ready. So let's see. Can you hear me? I can't hear you talk. I'm gonna add you to the stream. No, hold on. Is it better now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Sorry, it's not on your end. It's on my end. It's these headphones for some reason have a hard time syncing up.
Okay.
It's always an issue. I don't know.
It's okay. Well, thank you for joining us. I'm thrilled that you're able to come on and we can chat today.
Cool.
Let me just remove our website for a few minutes. So, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself for those who don't know who you are?
Okay. Well, my name is Dave Beaty. For nearly the last 30 years, I've been a professional illustrator and graphic designer. I've worked on a lot of things that some people have heard of. I've worked for most of the major comic book publishers over the years. Done work for Marvel, DC Comics, Boom, Aspen, Dabu Brothers, just a bunch of different companies. I've worked as an inker. I've worked as a colorist, and I've worked as a penciler. Although my most recent work, people will be familiar with, would be creator-owned work. I have a webcomic I do called Red Skirts, which people can read online for free. And then I also have a live streaming show that I do with my co-host Eric Alexander called The Retro Rogues. It's sort of like a genre entertainment kind of a news and talk format show. And yeah, so I do that too.
All right. Yeah, we were when at first we didn't, when you came on, before you came on, and I know it's a little later, I was going on your website. I was showing the audience already some of your work, and
cool.
I was curious what you call it, the Retro Rogues was about, because I wasn't familiar with that. I know your Red Skirts, and I want to talk about that. But tell us a little bit about Retro Rogue before we go into anything.
So Retro Rogues originally started out as a sort of a retro movie review show on YouTube. Back then it was called In the Studio Retro Retrospective. And I actually started that with the Janimal, Jan Mark Quizabing, which I know that you're friends with. We're both friends with.
Yes.
And we started doing that just for fun. And we did about 30 some odd episodes kind of here or there. I had different people come on when he wasn't available. And we just did it mostly for fun. And then at one point, I thought it would be interesting to maybe look at doing an audio show. And then this format kind of changed a little bit. And then Lynn Workman, who I co-created a independent comic series called Bushi Tells with years ago, was my co-host. And it's continued to move and morph and change. So now basically it is the Retro Rogues. and that's with me and my co-host Eric Alexander. So typically the way it works is we start off with something topical that we're talking about. Like right now we're reviewing every episode of the Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. So we're doing every episode of that at the top of the show. Then after that, we do pop culture news, and then we do a streaming wars segment where we talk about things that's happening in the world of live streaming, whether it's paid services, free services. With what's been going on, we've been trying to point people to the free services they may not be aware of, things like Tubi, Pluto TV, and that kind of stuff. So there's other ways people can find entertainment that doesn't cost them a lot of money. And then we'll do a retro review at the end. So right now we're working our way through Back to the Future. So we did Back to the Future Part 1, we did Back to the Future Part 2. Now we're going to do Back to the Future Part 3, and that will be this Wednesday at 7 p.m.
Okay. Now, one of the things we talked about before you came on was that you would be you could, draw, and we could talk while you draw and have it as a drawing thing. Are you ready to draw? Or do you want to get a little more chatty before we get into?
If we could be chatty, because I had so many technical problems getting everything running. I don't know. I don't know if it would cooperate with me right now. I have been live streaming and drawing on Facebook. However, part of the reason I stopped doing as much of it because I kept having problems. I don't know what's going on. A lot of people. I'm in northern Arizona, kind of up in the mountains. Maybe it's just a signal thing. I don't know. But I would be happy in the future if you want. What I'll do is I'll change my setup, and it won't be an interview; it'll just be a drawing setup, and then we can totally do that. But if I switch it over right now, I'm afraid I might break my internet connection.
I completely understand. I have issues sometimes with my Cintiq because I have a laptop and I have to have an adapter to my laptop to run the Cintiq, and if I turn my screen to my laptop too much so I can be in the picture as well as my Cintiq's in the picture, it disconnects the Cintiq, and then I'm like, oh, it's just me now, and I can't. So I have to make sure if I'm doing streaming on my Cintiq first, I have to get that computer in the right position, make sure the Cintiq's functional, and then not move my computer. So
right. And I'm kind of in a similar sort of a position with mine. It used to work a lot better, and then I added a few new pieces of technology to it, and ever since then it's been giving me fits.
Yeah.
But if you want, what we could do is if you wouldn't mind sharing my screen, I could show people a couple things if you don't mind.
I'd be happy to. So we're gonna keep us down here, and if you want, I'll zoom in on the stuff and remove us from the screen.
Okay. Cool.
But,
all right.
But so this is something for retro rogues.
Yes, we actually just recently launched it's a digital first magazine called the Retro Rogues Fanzine.
Yeah.
And then this is artwork from one of the stories that's in there that I did. It's called Immortal Champion. It's going to be a multi-part. We're going to do 4 issues of this Retro Rogues fanzine, see how people like it, see how it works. And if it goes over really well, we'll continue to do it. But it's completely free. You just go to the Retro Rogues or my website. You can download it. There's no catch. You don't have to fill out any information or anything. It's just if you want to read it, feel free. It's not locked down either. So if you want to share it with other people, with either repost it or email it or whatever, feel free. It's just something fun for those of us to enjoy while we're going through what we're currently going through. But it's a labor of love by a lot of different creative professionals. The Janimal actually has a cartoon that was in there. I was going to talk to you to see if you might want to do something.
I would love to. So. I mean, when you're talking retro rogues, are you thinking more of like are you the rogues, like you and your partner, or are you talking more about dark, like the villains of the story?
Well, the way it works is with the Retro Rogues is just anyone who's a part of our community, you are one of the rogues. For example, when we do the live stream, people like to comment and stuff. They're members of the Rogues Gallery. So, that kind of idea. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah, but again, it's just we just focus on things we love. The idea is to mostly stay positive. As much as we can. Sometimes with reviews, it doesn't go that way if someone really dislikes, whatever it is that they're talking about. But normally we try to stay positive and look at the good side and just celebrate celebrate, genre, fiction entertainment, whether you're talking about comics, whether you're talking about books, movies, TV shows, what have you. So, but this is just an image from that I did. And these, the one character, the gold looking guy, that's actually Ra. And he's actually from the first creator-owned series I worked on way back in the 90s called Star Gods. So I'm kind of excited to have the Star Gods kind of back in this little short story I'm doing. And then, unfortunately, Scott Clark, one of the people who co-created Star Gods, passed away many years ago. But Dean Zachary and I, the other two co-creators, were still kicking. And I luckily enough, was able to get Dean's blessing to do this. So I'm bringing the Star Gods back for just a short little story for those people that may or may not remember them. So
fantastic. Can you give us a little synopsis of the story without spoiling anything?
Well, unfortunately, this story is so short. There's not much to synapse. Basically, Ra, of course, the sun god from ancient Egyptian mythology. How do I sum up Star Gods quickly? I have a better elevator pitch for things I haven't thought about in 20, 30 years. The basic idea of Star Gods is that there are these throne worlds, and all the ancient gods of mythology, they rule a different throne world. And basically, for eons and eons, they've warred amongst each other. And in the original series, a threat emerges from the far side of the universe, and it's destroying the different throne worlds, and they have to come together in order to stop this threat. This story takes place after that original story. And in this, basically, the various sort of gods of mythology are basically being pitted against each other in sort of a Mortal Kombat type of thing, so that basically one will emerge and one will rule them all. So it's kind of Highlander-ish. So in this first one, we have Ra, and Ra is going to be facing off against Achilles. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Very
So that's
go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that's pretty much it for that. And then my other project, which we did touch on briefly, is Red Skirts, and these are totally brand new images. A lot of people haven't seen these. We are hard at work on Volume 2. The reason there's been a delay is we want to have enough pages completed that when we start our regular update schedule, I tend to get busy with things, and it's usually my fault that we miss an update. So the goal is we're trying to bank a huge number of pages so that when we go live again, we're not going to miss one. Yeah. So we're trying to basically complete the bulk of issue 2 before we actually go live. But these are brand new images. This is a brand new uniform that we're doing, sort of motion, somewhere between 60s and motion picture kind of design. If you're familiar with Star Trek.
How many pages do you expect issue 2 to be?
Every one of the installments we do we look at it as a standalone book, so it's a minimum of 65 pages each one.
Oh wow, that's large. So, I have a project I'm getting ready to do. I have a friend writing it for me. I want it written hopefully by like mid-July, so I can pencil and ink as much as I can before the new year, even color. So I want to launch it January 1st, and I want to be ahead of the game. And I planned it as a 52-page. Comic, so that it each week is a story, and then it just ends on the last week, and it's a sci-fi story too.
Very cool.
Comedic one. It's called The Adventures of Dax Photon, but that hasn't come out yet. But obviously yours is very Star Trek inspired. It looks like, at least from the ship. Yes,
it is a Star Trek parody. Is how it started.
Okay.
But it's kind of morphed kind of beyond that. But we play with a lot of sort of the classic Star Trek, sort of iconography and tropes, so that it feels kind of familiar. But it's because it's a parody comic, it's a humor comic, so it's a lot of fun. But it has action adventure elements as well. Yeah. But you can check it out at redskirtsonline.com. And again, if people are interested, you can read it there for free. The whole first volume, Where No Woman Has Gone Before, is basically available on there, and I think it is over 65 pages. I forget what the final page count for Volume 1 was. And then the goal is eventually, once we get Volume 2 going, at some point we may look at doing some kind of a crowd-funded Kickstarter thing or something to actually collect the first volume and make that available for people that are interested. So yeah, then there's that.
So I take it you're a sci-fi fan, since this is...
Yes.
Is Star Trek your go-to, or do you have other sci-fi that you love, or would rather love than Star Trek?
Well, I mean, Star Trek is probably one of my most favorite. But I love a lot of the stuff that kind of it was just basically sort of like informed my childhood. Star Trek was a big part of that. Star Wars was obviously a part of that too. I don't buy into the whole Star Trek versus Star Wars thing. I know some people do. I look at them as they're just different things. I don't see why one has to be quote unquote better than the other. They're both different and fun. But I love Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon. And a lot of these things, I started off watching either the television shows or the movies, and it basically ushered me into eventually sort of the comics. So eventually, for example, Flash Gordon, I went back and actually reread a lot of the original Alex Raymond Flash Gordon strips. And then I also discovered some of the later artists who have become a huge, huge influence on me. People like Mac Rayboy. So it's just kind of interesting how you kind of discover these things, and then you go and you discover the source material, and it leads you down a different path, and it forms your work in a different way. So
yeah, I you're naming all the stuff I loved. I know we have a bit of an age difference, not much, I would assume, but because I grew up watching Buck Rogers. I mean, I was a little, like real little when that was out, but Flash Gordon, all that stuff. I had my father's side of the family. He was born in 41, but but he's the youngest. So all the other ones came first. That came first. My uncle Joe, specifically, his older brother, he was the one who I would sit and watch comics with. But we would watch these old black and white stuff together. When I would see him, things like the old Tarzan and the Flash Gordon movie serials and things like that. So those were things that influenced me. And Star Trek, I didn't get into until the Next Generation because that was my era. And I was one of those Star Wars geeks for a long time, honestly, until Stargate came out. And that just, I haven't, Stargate is my all-time favorite. But I love how we have other shows out, or at least one point did, that had, shows like Farscape and Serenity and all that stuff. Or that was the show Serenity at the time, or movie, right? Serenity is the movie. Firefly was the TV.
Firefly, yeah. Sorry, it's going to sound like sacrilege. I own Firefly and I quite enjoy it, and I've revisited it from time to time. But it's I know some people consider it the greatest science fiction show ever made. Controversy. Please don't hate comments. I like it, but I don't know if I buy into that. But I enjoyed it. So I felt like that Firefly, in all honesty, reminded me of sort of like the adventures of Han Solo before he joined the rebellion, because it had that ring to it. With the fact that he had been a soldier and he'd fought in this war, and he had his ship was his main thing, and I had this feeling that when I used to watch it, that's how I always looked at it. So but I quite enjoyed it. So, but I was a huge Stargate guy too. That you could tell by looking at Raw from Star Gods. I mean,
I was going to say it reminded me a bit. And I've watched all the series of Stargate. I'm actually rewatching Atlantis right now. I'm in season 4. So it's like my background noise when I'm working, and I pick up and look at the exciting parts. What other influences besides, it doesn't have to be sci-fi, but what are some of your influences in it to, create the stories because you're saying you're doing a lot more creator owned, and you have worked for Marvel and DC, but what was it that were your influences that, whether it got you into art or it got you writing and drawing the way you do now? And I'm not saying style, but like topics.
I'd have to say things that influenced me the most in terms of story. I do love mythology, and I love to read, and I read all kinds of things. Whether it's like, for example, I've read a lot of books about just general mythology, and histories of different cultures and stuff. I find inspiration in terms of story from all kinds of things. But I am heavily influenced, pretty heavily by obviously, like we said earlier, the science fiction shows, and the movies and stuff that I originally saw. But that was the pathway that led me into, I starting off by reading like the Star Trek novels, like the early Star Trek novels, and getting more into that world. And even Battlestar Galactica, a lot of the teleplays, they actually took them and adapted them into novels back in the day too. But then that kind of leads you to other things. It leads you to, Dune, so you read all of Frank Herbert's work, and that, ignites a different kind of curiosity in you, continue to explore and discover other things. So I'd have to say it's definitely story, but it's primarily things from books, I think, that influence my storytelling the most. And I have to say that's the biggest source of inspiration. And whenever I think about story beats and stuff, I am always kind of referring to as much of sort of the great stories I think I can pull from. Like, for example, we were working on Bushy Tales, the larger story, which we didn't get a chance to tell because basically we ran out of funding, essentially. The goal with the larger story was to actually look at it as the Odyssey, and so, kind of Homer's Odyssey, but what happens to these, female samurai as they, journey across this sort of, Earth after this nuclear holocaust. But the pattern, the thing we were looking at was Homer's The Odyssey. That's why in the original story they actually fight a Cyclops. They don't fight a creature from Japanese mythology. They fight a creature from a different mythology, because the underpinning was that all the different cultures and all the different people, we're still that melting pot that America is, but now it's the world. And so, when they emerge from their isolated society and they come out into the larger world, they have to learn to work together. They have to learn about different cultures. They have to, it's all about, acceptance and teamwork and, hopefully loftier ideals that we can all aspire to as people. So.
And I think that's like a great point of sci-fi. A lot of that is the message in a lot of science, specifically things like Doctor Who. It's right out in front. I mean, here's a guy who travels with companions, and it's all about understanding. And especially with the new Doctor, they have a large, it's one of the largest companion sets in a while, and they and that's really what it is about. It's about acceptance. It's about working together. And I think all sci-fi really does that. Even the story that I created of Dax, I'm not going to give the story away because it hasn't come out yet, but he's kind of more of the bumbling idiot hero who with the heart of gold, who needs to learn to do things, or needs to learn to work together because his ego is a little bigger than it should be. Right. So it's done in a comedy form, but that's really the point of the story is friendship and working together and relying on each other and things like that. So, and that's how I pitched it to my friend who's writing it to me. So I said, I told him, and this is how I work with my writers all the time. And I say, I give them a sheet of paper or whatever, and I say, this has to be in it. These are the characters. This is what you're doing. You're the writer. Go off and do whatever you want to get me to those points. Make sure everything's in there. I read it. If I don't like something, we change it. But I'm like, if you want to tell it as a flashback or you want to do this scene because you think it'll work, but write it. Doesn't hurt. You focus on your creative stuff. So that's why I picked my friend, because he's good at stuff like that. But I mean, that is, I think, looking at science fiction and giving the message. I mean, I feel fantasy kind of has that too a bit.
Yeah.
Specifically Lord of the Rings, just comes to mind, working together. Movies like Willow, it's that teamwork, it's that acceptance. It's great to have those messages in the stories. But we're going to move on a little bit because I saw you. Oh, let's talk about the Bushdales. I saw the picture of Batman, so I was going to talk about that.
Yeah, well, since you were talking about fantasy, I thought, and I'd already mentioned Bushy Tales. I thought Bushy Tales would be something that you were talking about. So Bushy Tales was basically about 4 female samurai who are sent on a quest by Hachiman, the Japanese god of war. It was a post-apocalyptic samurai epic. You can tell I wrote it because I know how to pitch it. This is Akio. She was the star of the series. And she basically was trained from birth to basically lead this quest. Yeah. And part of the underpinnings of the story is the fact that they, just like feudal Japan of old, they were an isolated society. So there's been this nuclear holocaust. The gods of mythology reappeared and basically gave certain groups of people, this is coming, prepare. So she's part of the group that was actually prepared. But she's basically a generation removed from the Holocaust, so the war. So when they reemerge and rebuild society, there's different enclaves, but there's also ruins. It's very much like Buck Rogers when they journeyed out into old Chicago, and old Chicago was burned down, and there were mutant creatures running around. There's pockets of that in the old world, but then in the new world that's been rebuilt, it's as if these various cultures, there's some of them are more isolated than others. But they've kind of reestablished themselves, and so they basically go on this quest, and they're looking for this traitor called Chosen Yasunori, that's his name, and he's done this horrible thing, and they're being sent out basically to dispatch him, basically assassinate him, and then come back with his body. And the story is all about what happens to them along the way. But it was an independent, creator-owned series. We got the first main story out, and then we ran out of funding. So unfortunately, it didn't go as far as I wanted it to. It's still something I hope to return to or revisit someday. But if people are interested, it was in comic book stores nationwide. You can still run down copies if you're curious to read it. Okay. But it was created by myself and Lynn Workman. And Lynn has been a really good friend of mine for many, many years. And we created the story together. We just kind of threw ideas at each other. The general idea originally was he had gone to a Wonderfest. I forget the name of it. There's one in Kentucky where it's about building models.
Okay.
Like resin figures and ships and stuff. I forget the actual name of it, but he was really big into model building, and he wanted to do at that time what they were just called garage kits. So you could get all this stuff so you could cast and make your own molds and create your own model kits. And that was something he was into. And he had wanted to do something, but he told me, he's like, but I don't have anything that I could do. And I was like, well, it's not that difficult. What do people really like that you see people are into at this, this one show that what are people into? And he's like, well, they really like the Universal monsters, and they really like the female anime characters. I'm like, well, that's real simple. It's female anime characters fighting the classic monsters. Let's just do that. So that's kind of how Bushy Tales kind of started, and then it spun out of control and turned into this whole other thing. But anyhow, we did do the initial 3 issues, so if people are curious, you can check them out. But this was the cover for issue 1. There's a little bit of storytelling here. Obviously, Akio has lost someone that's important to her. This was the cover for issue 2. This is that was Akio. This is Kimio. Mm-hmm. And her story, it starts off with the Budo Institute, where they're training in, is basically attacked in the middle of the night, and it's attacked by this ancient race of beings called the Pelasgians. Yeah. And so they basically attempt to attack, and so she's basically fighting them off initially by herself, on her own, essentially. That was the cover for issue 2, and then we'll go over to cover for issue 3. And this is Hachiman in our story. This was what the Japanese god of war looked like. He doesn't look exactly like the one from mythology, and that's sort of like a key, because he's not really the one from mythology. That was part of the underpinning of the story, is who are the gods of old? Who are they really? So, yeah.
I have you thought about releasing these digitally, like on something like Drive-Thru Comics or something, where people can download them or have them printed up and sent to them or something? Or
but they were available. Well, we still have printed copies. We sell at conventions. I have been talking with Lynn, the co-creator, about making them available digitally. So hopefully we'll be able to do that soon. Originally you could buy the PDFs actually on our website back when we had the bushytales.com website. So, but this is still very much a labor of love. A lot of people know me for having actually worked on Bushy Tales back in the Phoenix comics community. For the longest time, I was known as that Bushy Tales guy.
I had a name like that too. I drew. I don't know if you ever saw my character Plunger Pup. I drew a story about a dog with a magic plunger who fought crime, and it was a sci-fi story. He fought crime both on Earth and intergalactically. And for years, people will go, "Oh, you're the guy who draws a dog with the plunger, right?" You know, that's how I was known. They didn't even have the title. They just said, "You draw that dog with the plunger, right?"
Right.
Something, you know. So, sorry.
Well, oh no, yeah, I think that's awesome. Actually, I would actually like to read that. So this is what I had up before.
Yes.
A lot of people know me for the work I did at DC Comics. When I was at DC Comics, I worked on a lot of series. I think probably the one most people will probably remember as time moves on is Scott Clark and I did an important issue of his run on Batman with Grant Morrison.
Okay.
And we did Nightmares in Numberland, which is one of the issues of Batman Incorporated. And then the thing that was interesting and also sad is at the time that we were working on Nightmares in Numberland, and they were having meetings and talking about moving to the New 52, because there was original DC Universe, was a post-crisis or whatever it is universe, and then they were getting ready to do the New 52. We didn't know that was going on, and so the Batman office had us doing a series of covers that we were going to do, like, for 1 month. We were going to have all the variant covers for all the Batman books. I was beyond excited. I love Batman, so I was jumping out of my skin. We completed this one. This was going to be the cover for Batman Incorporated. We completed the cover for Azrael. We were working on the cover for Batman and Robin, and that's when the announcement broke that they were going to go to the New 52. And basically, all these covers were basically just never to be seen.
That's a beautiful. What part of were you? What part of that were you? With the penciler, the inker? What part did you do?
I was the inker on this series, but the actual the covers I inked, and Scott Clark penciled them. This is actually colored by Bill Farmer, who is a good friend of mine, who is a fantastic comics colorist who worked on a lot of different things. He actually colored. What was it? The Amazing Story of Stan Lee, that autobiography that was in a graphic novel format. He actually colored that. Okay. But Bill's a good friend of mine, and I was like, I always loved the idea of maybe seeing what this would look like in color, because we completed in black and white, but it never got colored. Yeah. And so Bill actually came in and actually colored it up. And when I do conventions, this is still my main banner. I'll probably be changing out at some point, but I've been using this for years. But this is one of my favorite images that we worked on at DC, even though technically it didn't get published. But we did, while I was at DC, I worked on covers for Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes as an inker. Most of the stuff I did was as an inker. I worked on Mr. Terrific, I, Vampire. I was on Grifter from about issue 3 or 4 till the bitter end, when the series was canceled. I worked on Titans, Justice League of America. I had a pretty nice run at DC, so it was fun.
That's great. And you said you did some work for Marvel. What'd you do for them?
So what I did for Marvel, I don't have any images for that.
It's okay. I'm a DC guy. I'd rather look at this anyway. No offense.
No. Well, I think I do have a couple things, because what I used to do too is I would do sketch cards. Okay. So what I would do is, like, in the morning I would get up and I would do warm-up drawings. And so I started taking sketch card gigs, because I thought, well, somebody wants to pay me to do my warm-up drawings in the morning. Why not? So I started doing sketch card gigs. So here's something Marvel. But I worked on, that's Rogue. Yep. From Dangerous Divas. But I worked on a bunch of sketch card sets for Marvel. But when I originally started back in the day, I actually did ghost work. I actually ghosted with Scott Clark, actually on his run of Alpha Flight with Steve Siegel. That was how I actually met Scott. But the big book I like to talk about is I worked on Guardians of the Galaxy, the 90s series. I worked on annual number 3. And prior to that, I basically got paid to help draw backgrounds, which was amazing. Because prior to that, the only thing I'd ever done to earn money was, like, cut lawns. So that was pretty awesome, and I actually managed over the years. I've actually managed to get some of the original pages back, actually, from art dealers. I actually have 2 of my favorite pages actually hanging here in my studio that I worked on. But did a lot of ghosting. And then eventually I got to work on X-Men Sword of the Braddocks with Scott Clark. It was sort of like Psylocke's last big adventure when she transitioned from exiles and basically came back from the dead and then came back over to the regular, land of the living 616 Marvel universe.
Yeah.
And that was fun to work on. We had been in discussions to actually work on a Surfer series when Disney decided to buy Marvel, and everything just came to a screeching halt.
Yeah.
So that really sucked because I'd been working on a CGI model of Galactus's ship, basing it loosely off of the one that Mobius had designed for Parable, the Stanley Mobius. That was the main thing we were drawing from, was that, and a lot of John Buscema's work in the original series.
Yeah.
And so that kind of sucked. That'd have been fun to say, yeah, I worked on Silver, but I didn't work on Silver Surfer. But I almost did. And then, of course, I did a lot of work at DC. And I do have two of my actually favorite covers. Actually, I worked for, I pulled those aside too. I worked on Mark Waid's Irredeemable.
Okay.
We did covers for that series. I was the inker on these. Scott Clark was the penciler. I think Scott colored some of these, and I think Andrew Dahlhaus colored some of them. And then Andrew was our colorist on Grifter. But I maybe Andrew colored this one. He might have colored this one. I don't remember. But I always loved this image.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the Plutonian, I think, the main hero from Irredeemable. It's kind of like evil Superman.
Yeah.
Long before they did that Birthright movie or whatever it was.
Haven't seen it yet.
I haven't either. And then this is another shot of the same character. These are two of my favorite covers that Scott and I did.
Yeah.
Back in the day. So. And these were for Boom. So,
and it's I find it a little interesting that you and Scott have worked on so much. When you were teamed up at Marvel, that's where you said you met, right?
Yeah. Well, what happened was back in the day, a lot, I never hear more people talk about it, but it was just always this thing that used to happen back in the day. But a lot of times the pencilers, not always, but sometimes the pencilers, they would have basically assistants they would hire. And so you would basically work for them, and they would pay you like a small fee per page. Like I used to get paid $50 a page to draw backgrounds.
Yeah.
And so I auditioned for that job, actually for Scott, and I managed to get it, working on Alpha Flight, for example. And what happened is while we were working on Alpha Flight, we kind of realized we were a good team.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to remember the actual events, how they occurred. Basically, just at some point, he told me, he's like, hey, because it started off, it was like this. It was like a drug deal. Like I would show up with my pages I'd done the night before, and I'd knock on the door, and he would kind of just crack the door, and be like, hey, and I'd hand him the pages, and he would hand me the money. It's like a drug deal, because he wouldn't let me go inside his house. Like it was just weird, right?
Yeah.
And there'd be some days I'd be waiting for him to come back, so I'd just be like literally sitting on his doorstep waiting for him to show up, because he'd give me like 2 pages or 5 pages, and it was always the same thing. It was like, I need this tomorrow morning. So I would literally go back to my apartment, not sleep at all. I had a full-time day job. I not sleep at all, draw these pages, and then drop them off the next day, and but eventually he told me, he's like, hey, look, we're having this meeting thing. I want you to come out for it. And I was like, sure. And so it was, Scott was there, another artist some people may or may not have heard of, Jim Hall, was a great comic book artist and illustrator. And then Dean Zachary, who's a good friend of mine, and just, I love Dean's work. Dean worked on all kinds of stuff. He worked on New Gods, Superboy. He worked on Green Lantern. He did Johnny Quest, Sliders, all kinds of stuff. But Dean was there, and then it was Scott, and he said that he wanted to create a action figure line, and he wanted all of us to work together and form a studio. And Star Gods came out of that. Star Gods originally supposed to be an action figure line.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so we got really tight. We got to be really good friends. We started hanging out and stuff, and he liked my work, and I was able to help him, complete his stuff, and he managed to give me help me get a lot of amazing opportunities. And then from that point on, the goal was, we told ourselves, well, let's try to form that Jim Lee Scott Williams, sort of working relationship, where Scott could just kind of doodle something in a hurry if he needed, and I would know how to finish it. Like I would understand his style and what he was trying to do well enough that I could finish stuff for him if I needed to. So we worked together from that point until his unfortunate death. And we worked on all kinds of stuff. Besides this, we also did other things people don't think about. We did previs for a mass transit system because he and I started getting into CGI back when it was brand new back in the day. That was one of the things he and I had in common. We designed these weird legend racer cars, like all kinds of stuff. We did all kinds of stuff, beyond just the comic book illustration work that people are familiar with. So
yeah, no, that's interesting. I'm sorry that I'm yawning a little. I've been doing this since 10 a.m.
No, I know.
So it's nothing. I'm very interested in what you're having to say. So I don't want you to think I'm or anything. It's really cool that you guys had that type of relationship. Sometimes it's hard to find something like that. Actually, I wanted to ask you about this. I saw this on your website. What's this piece?
Okay, so this is one of the series that Scott and I worked on at DC. Is they brought us on to work on Flashpoint. We actually were supposed to do all 3 issues of the Flashpoint Wonder Woman series, and we did the first issue, and then we were going to do the covers for the next 2. And for reasons I still don't understand, Grant Morrison specifically requested us to work on that issue of Batman Incorporated, and because of the schedule, we couldn't do both. Yeah. So we either worked on Batman Incorporated or we finished Flashpoint Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
I wanted to finish Flashpoint Wonder Woman, but it made more sense to go work on Batman. And eventually people talked me into it. And so this was the cover for issue 2. This is another one of my favorite covers that Scott and I did. But the Flashpoint Wonder Woman character is very different from the one we know from the traditional DC comics, timeline. Basically, when the Flash, spoiler alert for those of you who haven't read Flashpoint, the Flash goes back in time, he saves his mom and unravels the entire DC universe. And one of the things that changes is basically Wonder Woman's story. So instead of Wonder Woman saving Steve Trevor and following him back to America, instead what happens is Wonder Woman is trying to basically escape sort of her isolated society on Themyscira because she wants to see the larger world, and Aquaman actually saves her. And those series of events change everything. Yeah. And she's very much sort of an antagonist or a villain, depending upon how you want to view her stance on the world. So, but it was a fun series to work on. I've always loved this cover. Nice. Yeah, but that's what that's from. Flashpoint Wonder Woman.
Yeah, no, that's good. So I remember reading, I don't know if I ever read the Wonder Woman issues, but I remember reading like the main line of Flashpoint.
Yeah.
And they had it was a very interesting idea, but, I don't like to use the word unfortunately, but that's what brought about the New 52 basically. And it didn't, the books I enjoyed were the ones that were canceled quickly. From there, I was a big fan of Etrigan and the Knights of the Demon. I thought that was a great book.
Yep.
But I'm not here to. Go ahead.
I personally was enjoying Frankenstein and the Agents of Change.
Yeah, that was good too.
Yeah, so I feel you on books that were canceled too soon that had more potential than they got to realize. So, it's one of those things. It's like I'm very proud of the work I did on the New 52. And I'm lucky because I got to work at DC Comics before the New 52, during the New 52, and for a brief time after the New 52. And I've seen the ups and I've seen the downs, and but I'm still proud of a lot of the work that we had done. And what I always tell people is that no one ever intends to make a bad book. It's just sometimes things are not in your control. Yes. And someone may have a better idea, and editorial may choose to ignore it. So, like for example, Grifter. The original idea for Grifter that was pitched to me sounded so amazing because it was basically a superhero version of They Live, with Roddy Piper and Keith David, where he puts on the sunglasses and he can see the aliens amongst them. It's the same idea with the Damonites. Yeah. But unfortunately, the original vision, while it's still kind of there in the book, the way it was pitched to us, and there were certain things that were supposed to happen that didn't happen for that series. tying into larger events and stuff, and due to interoffice politics and whatever, unfortunately, it just didn't get to happen. So the book never realized its full potential. But I still am very proud of the work that we did on it. So,
yeah, no, I mean, I'm always proud of whatever I put out. So, and you kind of have to be. You kind of, you want to put your all into it. I mean, that's what we do. We love this. We love this medium, and we want to give our all into it. So, but yeah, let me ask you, because I remember I asked you if I can share one of your videos, and I haven't yet today, just because of time. And I plan to show it and share it one day, if not on a stream and just let it play on a stream. I'll share it on my website, my IncrediKids stuff, and make sure people get to see it. It was about coloring with Prismacolor markers, and you drew the blue beetle. And in there, I got to be honest, I didn't watch it from start to finish because of the time frame of it, but I skipped around a bit, and I was listening to some of the stuff that you were saying, and you were talking about how you liked the old Charlton characters, like the beetle and stuff that eventually you bought. What characters did you get to work on? Any of those type of characters while you were at DC that you loved, that that were like original Charlton characters, or other stuff, other companies that DC ended up acquiring?
Well, I'd have to say, I wish I could say I did. I got to work on a lot of my dream characters that I always wanted to work on as a child.
Yeah.
And I got to work on a lot of really cool stuff, but unfortunately, I didn't get anywhere near, Captain Atom, Rorschach, or the Question. Unfortunately, I would have loved to have had the chance to work on any. I would have loved to work on Judo Master or Peacemaker, and any of that stuff. I love all that stuff.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I did not. I did, however, get to work on some of my favorite characters from my childhood. I mean, I grew up in my family grew up really poor. And the idea of getting to work on some of the most popular characters like in the world, the idea I'd ever get the chance to do that seemed a million miles away. I always dreamed about it, but never thought it would happen. Getting to work on Batman was a huge thrill.
Yeah.
Like a huge thrill for me. And I didn't just work on Batman once. I got to work on Batman several times. And that was amazing. But I'd have to say the big one for me is Firestorm. Firestorm was in Brightest Day. I remember watching the Superpowers. I can't remember if it's Galactic Guardians or what they call the particular version of.
I think it was Galactic Guardians when.
Was it?
When Firestorm came in, I believe it was Galactic.
Yes. Yeah. I remember it because it was him and Cyborg with the two new characters they introduced. And at the time, I had been getting my comic books from a 7-Eleven that was around the corner from my house. And I used to tell people, when I talked to them, it was a very different world when I was first reading comics, because you were limited by whatever the guy who filled the spinner rack put in the spinner rack.
Yeah.
And so I used to always ask them, it's like, hey, did you guys get any Batman comics? And they'd be like, no. And so I'd go to the spinner rack and I'd look and I'd pull stuff. And one of the things I always had is they always had Firestorm. So I got to read basically about the first 2 solid years without any interruption of Jerry Conway's run on Firestorm, with Pat Broderick, and then eventually Raphael, I can't remember his name, blanking on the names of the various creators that worked on it. But I got to read that series, and I had the little Firestorm action figure, and I love Firestorm. And one of the few Superpowers figures I actually kept from my childhood that I still have is Firestorm.
Mine's Dr. Fate.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Dr. Fate's really great. And that's another character I would love to work on. But it was such an amazing. I'll never forget that phone call when I got it, and I was told that they want us to work on Firestorm because Scott was more a Marvel guy, so he didn't know who Firestorm was. So it kind of left him kind of cold. He was wanting to work on Batman. He was wanting to work on Superman. He was wanting to work on something that was a big marquee, A-list, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I told him, I said, but DC Comics fans are very ravenous, and they love their B characters. They love their C characters, especially when they can tell the creators are bringing everything they have to them. I said, so that's all we've got to do. I said, because there's people that love Firestorm. I said, and I was like, we just do a killer version of Firestorm, and we got lucky because they brought Ronnie Raymond back.
Yeah.
And the idea was that Ronnie Raymond, the original, the host body of Firestorm, and Jason Rush, who had been the previous host body of the Firestorm entity, that they ended up having to combine together. So Johnny was sort of like not Johnny. Jason was sort of like the disembodied head, the conscience, the Jiminy Cricket way, providing advice like Professor Martin Stein was, and then Ronnie was the body of Firestorm again. But he was trying to pick up as if nothing had happened, as if he had never died, because that was part of the kick with the Brightest Day storyline, was that these characters are just trying to pick their lives up. But we got a really great version of Aquaman that emerged out of that series too. Yeah. That's what helped bring Aquaman back. But getting to work on Firestorm was such a huge thing, and the way that they told us, the way Jeff Johns explained it, actually, is he said that the goal was to imagine if Peter Parker and Flash Thompson had to work together.
Okay, that's a great way.
And that's what he was, and it was really great too, because those of us that are really deep dive Firestorm fans, like we remember that. I think most diehard Firestorm fans know that when Jerry Conway created Firestorm, the idea was to create a Marvel Comics type character in the DC universe. So when Jeff said that, I was like, that's awesome, because Jeff's bringing it back. He's using a Marvel analogy to this. Yeah. And so I was smiling, because I was just like, hell yeah, that sounds awesome. So getting to work on Firestorm was a huge thrill.
That's awesome. I got to ask you, since you're a Firestorm fan, what did you think about the interpretation of him on Legends of Tomorrow? Did you ever watch that?
I did. Scott and I did some of the earliest work, like on Deathstorm, and I'm very, very. I love Deathstorm as a villain. I know some people hate the name, but I love the name. And I'll be honest with you, it was I was left a little cold, to be honest. I mean, what they did with their version of Firestorm, because it's their version of Firestorm. It's not the Firestorm I grew up with at all. Their version of Firestorm is fun. But I for myself, being so closely associated and having loved the Ronnie Raymond, Professor Martin Stein version, that's what I personally would have preferred. And then their version of Deathstorm is a lightweight compared to ours. Ours is way more terrifying. He's way more evil. He just makes a better villain. So sorry, Legends of Tomorrow fans. I hate to say that, but the Deathstorm in the comics is a lot worse. He's a much better villain.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you. I grew up on the same issues. I mean, I don't think I bought the Firestorm stuff when they came out. I believe I got a collection from someone at one point, and they had like the first year or so of Firestorm in there, and that's when I read it. But it was after I watched the Galactic Guardians, so I knew who the character was, and I liked him on Galactic Guardians. I was like, oh my god, now I can read his story, and that's what did it for me, because his design is just really great.
I love it. Yeah, I love it because it's got those kind of Kirby influences, and that was one of the things that was really great too. Because when they reintroduced Firestorm into the DC universe with Brightest Day, and the hope was we were going to get that Firestorm series that spun out of Brightest Day. But again, they decided to do the New 52 relaunch, and a lot of things changed. But prior to that, there was a lot of discussion about Scott and I moving forward with a Firestorm monthly series following out of the events of Brightest Day. That would have been awesome. But when they brought him back, they wanted him to be very much the classic Firestorm as much as they could. They just wanted to take the old and the new and bring them together, so that it had a through line for the story. So the costume looks very much like the classic Firestorm. So I was loving it. I mean, that was so much fun to work on, and it was stressful too, because that Brightest Day came out, is shipped twice a month. So that was a pretty grueling schedule, because they had multiple art teams. Like there was one team that did Hawkman, one team that did Aquaman, one team that did Firestorm. There was just different teams that did different aspects. Another team was doing Hawk and Dove, so you never knew month to month what you were going to get. We had 1 month where basically we were the bulk of 2 issues. So that was like trying to do 2 issues in 1 month. And then because of Jeff's responsibilities at DC with being chief creative officer, he had so many other things he was doing besides just writing Brightest Day.
Yeah.
So, sometimes we would get the scripts a little bit later than we would have liked. And, you're putting in, 14, 16-hour days, 7 days a week for like a month straight, with no break. So it was brutal at times, but I'm very proud of the work. My favorite series I worked on was Brightest Day. And my favorite single issue I got to work on at DC is actually the first issue of Flashpoint Wonder Woman. I'm very proud of that work. So
awesome. I was actually going to ask you what was your favorite. But speaking of favorites, this was something I was going to ask you if you were able to draw for us today. Who is your favorite go-to character when you just draw, like warm up or just doodling? Do you have a character that is just your go-to to draw?
Yeah, my go-to is it's going to sound not terribly inspired. It's always Batman. But I enjoy drawing all the different versions of Batman that I can draw.
Yeah, I saw you had like an Adam West 66 type of version on your website.
Yeah, that's just what I thought I would bring up.
I love that piece.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And the idea with this was to try to imagine them in a little bit like a Bruce Timm animated series kind of a style.
Yeah.
So it's kind of got a little bit of that sort of influence. But yeah, my go-to is Batman. My favorite comic book character has always been Batman. I grew up watching the Adam West TV series. Love that. Eventually discovered some of the later comics. Not so much the Neil Adams stuff. It was more around the time that Gene Colan and Don Newton were doing it. Okay. That was when I kind of came into the Batman comics. My grandfather, who had a bunch of comics left over from when he had served during World War II. And so my bedtime stories when I was growing up, my grandfather would read these comic books and comic strips and stuff to me. So I was familiar with Batman already. So when I saw the show, I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I just clicked right in. It just sucks a young kid in, I think, the Batman TV series. But I eventually discovered the later comics and just fell in love with all these different versions of the character. And Batman's always been my favorite. And like I said, that's the thing. It was like I never imagined a time where I would have the opportunity to go work on Batman and I'd be saying no. But with Flashpoint Wonder Woman, they really didn't care what we did. That was the thing that was so amazing. It was like, I remember we had this debate. Scott and I didn't know what outfit to put Aquaman in when he first shows up. And we're like, do we put him in this classic costume? Do you guys have something that you've designed for it? Like, is he supposed to be wearing the one that we see he's wearing later in the series? Like, what outfit is he supposed to be wearing? And the answer we got back from the writers, Abnett and Lanning, was like, I don't know, orange and green. So we got to design everything in Flashpoint Wonder Woman. Yeah. And I never imagined I'd ever get to work on a DC book and have that kind of freedom. Yeah. So as long as the book shipped on time and it looked good, that was all they were worried about. So there was just, we had so much opportunity, so much input on that series. Yeah. That when the opportunity to go work on Batman came up, I had to be dragged off of Flashpoint Wonder Woman because the Batman book was going to be the complete opposite. Mm-hmm. Everything was set in stone. You know what I mean? It's everything's got to be a model. You know what I mean? And when we got over there, I realized that because of the story we were doing, we were being given the opportunity to do something unique. But at the time, I didn't want to leave Flashpoint Wonder Woman. But my go-to has always been Batman when I just sketch something. So
I find a lot of artists do it just because he's fun to draw, and he, the cape, you could do so many great things with. He's one of mine too. I usually do him or Superman or something. It's just I find that those are the usual two for DC guys. I'm going to wrap this up in a minute, but because today was our Kids Day, what advice would you give to anybody just getting into art or drawing or anything that you think a kid of any age should hear?
I would just say draw the things that you like, and draw every day. Sometimes people ask me, they everyone's path into the industry is different, mm-hmm. and everyone's career has highs and lows. Yes. And it's all about what you do at that time. I've had, pockets of time where all I did was just work for the major companies, and that's all I did. And that paid all my bills and everything was great. And then there's other times where you have to make different choices in life. I found myself at that point, and I chose to focus on creator-owned work, so I went and got a day job. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. No. But I'm still creating, and I'm still doing things that I love and I want to do. And that's the most important thing. If you love to draw, whether it's manga, whether it's superheroes, whether it's science fiction, it doesn't matter. If you love to draw things, draw what you love to draw, and then just draw every day. And then I always tell people is whenever an opportunity comes to you and you decide to do it, give it your all. That's it.
I agree. That's great advice. So we're going to end now. I want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I'd love to have you back when we can get the drawing working, and I think we'll be in touch soon. I want to chat with you about your idea you told me about in the beginning. So we'll talk soon. So again, thanks for joining us, and we'll be in touch. I want to thank everybody who tuned in. I'm gonna take you off the stream for now.
Okay.
All right, and I just want to thank everybody who tuned in all day or just came in at different parts. You guys are fantastic. Thanks for the questions you asked. Thanks for checking out everybody. All the people who came in to do a workshop, whether it was pre-recorded, or live with me and we just talked or whatever. Thank you. You made today awesome. I need to go take a nap now. So I will see you guys later. Remember, tomorrow night we got Paul Castiglia from 8 to 9, and then from 9 to 10 we got Ramon Gill. So I will see you all then. Have a great day. Bye.